Welcome! In this video, I want to share my first and only go-to Modern deck. I have played this deck since the Modern format was announced, and it has consistently produced excellent results while adapting over the years. If interested, I have a 4-part video series on the origins of the deck. Today, I'll give the list a run-through. I call it Isochron Aggro. I've also heard it referred to as Mardu Scepter, which is a good descriptor, even though the deck predates the Khans of Tarkir color combination. I have no idea what is out there already on this deck, but the reactions I get when I play it are on two ends of the spectrum. Number 1, cool deck, I've never seen those cards put together like that before. 2, oh, another burn deck, how original. In my opinion, the deck is great for its aggressive starts, but is also equipped with the cards to provide a long-term plan too. So we'll start with our deck instance, and as I run through the deck list, if you don't know what any of these cards are, you might want to pause and read it because I will not be stopping in the interest of time. So we have our 4 lightning bolts, hit the dome, clear a blocker. 4 lightning helix, same thing, gain some life. Then we have our 5 just kill them spells of differing colors, 3 path to exile, and 2 terminate. Next we have the deck namesake, 3 Isochron Scepter. Why not just keep using those really good spells? This can be cast on turn 1 if you want to be really greedy, but usually not advised as many decks can deal with it before you get 1 or 2 activations out of it. And this also goes against the plan of adding more threats to the board, which is better for your strategy of trying to win the game. I usually wait to cast it until I have enough mana available to use it at least once, so you're not losing cards. People will tend to bring in hate for this card, but I commonly sideboard it out, because it's not needed to win the game. Ha ha ha! Next we have our creatures. We have 3 Simian Spirit Guide, usually not a creature, but it can be in both good times and those hard times. The ape is essential to the deck's fast starts. Being able to play your turn 2 drops on turn 1 can be overwhelming for many decks, and just puts you in an overall good position in the game. Turn 1 Dark Confidant that sticks around to give you more cards, that attacks alongside a turn 2 Goblin Guide, can be tough to come back from. I can't think of a better start, but I'm getting ahead of myself. We also have 4 Goblin Guide, pretty much a slam dunk in any deck that wants to win fast. Goblin Guide gets your opponent's land, so that makes it fair. Next we have 3 Soulfire Grandmaster. A lot of value in a 2-drop. We have extra life gain on itself, extra life gain for when you cast your instance, and also it can be part of your long-term strategy because once you hit 5 or 6 mana, it's basically Isochron Scepter, but with legs. Note that with this card, you also gain 6 life off of Lightning Helix, which is huge. Next we have 4 Eidolon of the Great Revel. When this card is good, it is really, really good. When this card is bad, it gets really, really sideboarded out. But most of the time, it's pretty decent, so it's mainboarded. Also remember this card is an enchantment creature, so it's vulnerable to cards that hit enchantments. The next card is 4 Dark Confidant, the best card ever. Remember to familiarize yourself with the flavor text. I would say it's the best card in the deck, hands down. It attacks and fills your hand with more good stuff to win the game. Next we have 2 Gurmag Angler. No one expects this card when I cast it or reveal it to lose 7 life off of Dark Confidant, but it's so good in so many situations. It gives your deck a big creature that can come out very fast and close games out, or play defense and keep you in the game. It also gives your deck a creature that can be troublesome to remove as it survives damage spells. And then lastly we have a new addition to Tajik, Legion's Edge. I am a fan of this addition so far. The haste can be a very underappreciated mechanic. On top of that, he makes your other dudes bigger and protects them from damage spells. Next we have the land base. There are not many changes from the original design. Do note the focus on red mana. There are no godless shrines because you want all your lands to tap for red. This will make it easier to do multiple things on the same turn. We have our fetch lands, 4 Arid Mesa, 4 Marsh Flats, our shock lands, 4 Sacred Foundry, and 3 Blood Crypt are check lands, 1 Clifftop Retreat, and 1 Dragon Skull Summit. Then we have the Man lands, 2 Gitu Encampment. Note the first strike. This lets you block and not have to trade or keep attacking and save some spells for later. Lastly, we have our singleton of basic lands, Mountain, Plains, and Swamp. Lastly, we have the sideboard. Great advancements in sideboard technology have occurred over the last 4 years. The first card we have is Disenchant with 2 copies, mostly because you can no longer imprint Wear and Tear on the Isochron Scepter. Thanks, Wizards. This card will most likely be swapped out in a pinch for other cards, but at present this gives the sideboard an extra flavor of removal that may or may not be needed, likely to hit a Leyline or a Spreading Seas, or extra redundant artifact removal in those artifact-heavy decks. Next we have 2 Crackling Doom. Look at that cost. It's as if the card was made for this deck. It gives out instant speed removal to get rid of very big creatures, and then does 2 additional damage in the process, sadly no longer to planeswalkers. This gives the deck more options and outs versus mid-range decks, and decks with big creatures, Reanimator and Through the Breach decks as well. Next we have 3 Rakdos Charm, which I find to be excellent and versatile. All modes have been used and are very relevant. We have instant speed Graveyard Wipe for Reanimator, Living End, Storm, just to name a few. Extra artifact hate versus those artifact heavy decks like Ravager. And then we have the damage mode, which is a nice surprise to give you an extra reach against decks such as token decks or green decks with a lot of mana dorks. Next we have 2 Kolaghan's Command, the Quest for Card Value. This gives your deck extra grindiness in mid-range matchups for the long-term plan, and also extra redundant artifact removal against those artifact decks. I am trying it out against Control for the discard Raise Dead effect, but I'm not sure if that's what I want to be doing. Next we have 2 Volcanic Fallout. I like this card a lot, and it is an auto side-in versus anything blue, whether they have creatures or not. It cannot be countered. It also threatens instant speed board wipe against many other decks that start with small creatures, such as Ravager or decks with mana dorks or poison, and it just might gain you 10 to 20 life with Soulfire Grandmaster in play. Lastly, we have 2 Engineered Explosives. This card really shines in this 3-color modern deck. You can set the counters from 0 to 3, and a well-timed explosives can bring you back from a seemingly unwinnable position or help close out games. It is useful versus those mid-range grindy matchups such as Jund and Spirits, and it also is useful against decks that put a lot of nonsense onto the battlefield such as Lantern and tokens. Oh, also lastly, we have 2 Lightning Mare. This new addition was decided to help out against decks with counter spells since it cannot be countered, and it's also and has the inflatable effect, so it can become a mana sink as well. So this deck just blows everyone out of the water all the time, right? Well, no. Seeing a turn 1 lightning bolt to kill your creature means you might have to work for your victory. It is far more common for you and your opponent to exchange permanents and removal spells until both decks are in top deck mode. So what cards do you not want to see your opponent playing? Well, 1 is Collective Brutality, kill my guy, gain some life, take out another business spell on turn 2, must feel really good. Another card that is difficult is Tarmogoyf, mostly because it can get big and out of range of the burn spells, so if you don't have a removal spell in the form of Path to Exile or Terminate, then it's going to be lights out pretty quick. Also, Spreading Seas is a humongous disadvantage because it messes with your deck and lets your opponent draw cards. That is really bad for us too. Also, Blood Moon can be a problem too. However, since the deck operates off of mostly red and Isochron Scepter, Blood Moon is not instant loss, but it can make the game very interesting. I will stop there, but I do plan to do a more detailed video on other parts of the deck. Most likely it will be obscure cards that were considered or didn't make the cut or have fallen out of favor. Let me know if you've played this deck before or if you are playing it now.